Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to a special election episode of the MACS podcast. My name is Steve Schaeber. I'm the Manager of Service Training for MACS, the Mobile Air Climate Systems Association, and as usual, joined by my co-host and President of MACS, Peter Coll.
Steve, it is a pleasure to be here. It's the new year, 2024. It's very clear that you're suffering from a little bedhead today.
A little bit.
Because you were up late counting ballots, weren't you?
Well, I wasn't counting the ballots, but I was looking at the results of the election.
Right. And we're not talking about whether, what's going on in Nevada or anywhere other part. We're talking about our little MACS world where we have an annual election
for our board of directors.
For the board of directors, and the votes are cast by our members.
Right.
And we've got some results. So we're going to have some changes to our board for 2024. And I don't remember the exact installation date, but it's at our member meeting, I think, or our board meeting in Orlando.
Right.
So right around the 1st of February.
February 1st, I think, is the date.
Yeah,
right.
when we'll get the updated board. But we've got results.
Right. We have results to share with everybody. So let's pull it up on the screen.
Without further ado, here's the winning results of the election. So let's start out, and you're probably looking at this and you're like, these guys are just going to talk. I want to comment on two things. First of all, Mr. Ralph Vergara from Honeywell International has done a great job for us on the board.
Right.
But he is changing roles at Honeywell.
Different position.
Right. Yep. Still dealing with refrigerants and so forth, but some different applications. So he chose to stand down from running for a board seat to renew a 2-year term.
Right. So he's still technically a director today.
He is
he's
today.
Going to serve out his term.
Yep. And he's active, and I can get a hold of him at the drop of a hat if I need to. And but he's going to serve out his term. But he will not be continuing, and so that would essentially become not an incumbent, but a vacant seat. Would be filled, but he was up for election. The second one I want to talk about is longtime board member, as long as I can remember.
As long as I know, yeah.
Mr. Jim Atkinson. Jim Atkinson has stepped down from the board. He has a lot of things going on out in Arizona, and a lot of thought, long and hard. And made a decision that it was in the best interest of the association and in his best interest to step down from the board to take something off his plate.
Right.
And we want to thank Jim and Ralph, but thank you, Jim, particularly for all your hard work and your counsel over the years when I was just a member and when I was on the board with you, and then now as president of MACS.
Right.
So, we had Carolyn Marks was an incumbent and Rob Bollinger was an incumbent, and they both very successfully won re-election for our service provider sector. And then we had to have somebody fill the seat for Mr. Jim Atkinson, and that is
Tim Iezzi.
Our friend Tim Iezzi. Tim's been on the board before, and so Tim will be filling that last 1-year term for Jim Atkinson.
And that was determined by vote counts.
It was determined by vote counts. It was close, but it was determined by vote counts. And so when we do the election next year, Tim will be an incumbent, and if he chooses to do so, we'd love to have him come back on the ballot and be on next year's ballot. And of course, Andy Fiffick was reelected last year. He's our chairman, and so he'll be continuing on the board for the service provider sector for 2024.
Right. So next, moving on to distributors, we had 2 positions open for election, and our 2 incumbents, Steve Sunday from Sun Air, he ran and was reelected again.
Mm-hmm.
And also Trey Carlisle from Carlisle Air and Automotive, he won reelection.
Yep.
Ryan Baker and Darrell Robbins are not up for election this year, so their term will expire the end of the following year. Yep. So then if they choose to, then they can run again. That would be the 2024 election.
Yep, right? That's exactly right. And then we have the manufacturer sector. So we have Mary Jo Vandenbrink from Honeywell International, and Mary Jo is not taking the place of Ralph.
No.
I think that's that's kind of an important distinction here. So happens they're from the same company. If Ralph was continuing on the board, Mary Jo would not be able to run.
She wouldn't be eligible for running.
Right, would not be eligible. But when Ralph announced that he would not be continuing to seek re-election, then Mary Jo became eligible to be on the ballot. So Mary Jo has been elected to be on the ballot, to be on the board for next year.
Right.
And continuing from a prior term, the incumbent Charlie Roberts from TCCI Manufacturing will be joining Mary Jo Vandenbrink on the board. We also have Aaron Becker, who was elected last year as a rookie, a freshman.
A freshman. Yes.
Is that what the word is?
Yeah.
A freshman. So Aaron will be continuing on the board. And Al Leopold, a longtime board member from Bergstrom Climate Control Systems, was re-elected last year, and he shall also be continuing. And this year, for the first time ever.
Right, we have a new square.
We do. We have a new square because it was a brilliant idea. We have a lot of educator members, and education is such a big part of what MACS does.
Yeah, it's like the number 1, 2, and 3 things that MACS does. It's training and education for the industry.
Exactly. And we thought that it would be great if we could add educators to the board of directors. So I approached that idea with the board
probably
a couple
a year
of meetings ago, something like that. And they kind of looked at each other and the light bulbs kind of went on. They're like, why didn't we think of that?
Why haven't we done this before?
Right. So we were able to modify the bylaws to add the educators within the bylaws. And then we made a decision that instead of electing 4 educators this year and then having them on the board for 2 straight years and then having to re-elect 4 more educators, we said, we're going to put 2 on the board this year for a 2-year term. And then next year, we'll add 2 more educators for a 2-year term. And then that'll get them on that same cycle as everybody else. So we're fortunate enough to have whom?
First, Al McAvoy from Stellantis.
Yes,
right?
our good
Long
friend Al
time,
McAvoy.
and one of the most favored trainers that we have at our annual training event.
And Al's a great mentor. Al and I have known each other for a long time.
Wealth of information. Always helpful.
Yep. In when I was back in private industry, Al was very helpful to us over time with some things, but very helpful, very knowledgeable, just a wonderful guy.
And one of the most well-known on the training circuit, out, hitting up those auto parts stores and going to regional clinics around the country. Pam Oakes.
Miss Pam Oakes. Auto Iezzi.
Yeah, I have to find out from Pam what that's about. I've checked out her website before, so it's got lots of information about her classes.
Yep. So we're pleased to have Pam Oakes join us on the board, and we'd be remiss if we didn't thank all of the candidates who were not successful in running for the board for being willing to put forth their time, their effort in running for the board. And it's an all-volunteer board. Yeah,
because we did have a lot of interest. I mean, like you said, we have so many educator members, and a lot of them, when they found out about the opportunity, were just so happy that we had the spots opening up, and they all wanted to volunteer. So,
and it caused some people to take a look at what their membership level was. If they were individual members, but they were really educators, should they really be educator members?
That's true, because some of them were individual members, but they're actual working trainers.
Right, and we never really paid that much attention because, frankly, from a revenue standpoint, it was the same or very similar.
Price.
But if you're going to serve on the board, you have to be a service provider member if you're going to serve in that sector, or manufacturer, distributor, or educator member. So if I'm a manufacturer member but my main thing is training and that's all I do. I don't know, let's pick somebody out of the air. Let's pick a Dave Hobbs or a Jerry Mungle or somebody like that, right? Who works for a company who would be a manufacturer member, but all they do is training. They actually can't be in the educator sector on the board.
If they're listed under that corporate umbrella.
Correct. If
membership umbrella.
So some people kind of scrambled and did some shuffling and so forth. We also have some requirements that you can't just do it today and be on the ballot tomorrow. So,
Right.
So we might see some of those folks run for election in the future.
Right.
But we're very pleased the election went well. We're pleased to welcome our new board, and officially they'll all be sworn in at the MACS Training Event and Trade Show at the Rosen Center in Orlando.
In Orlando in about a month.
In about a month, January, 31st through February 3rd.
Yep.
Yep. And we'll have more on the Training Event and Trade Show and some details in a future video.
Right. So welcome to all of our new board members, and congratulations to those who won re-election. And we look forward to seeing you all at the training event in Orlando. So thanks for watching our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please give a thumbs up, and also please subscribe to get notified of future episodes. I'm Steve Schaeber.
And I'm Peter Coll.
And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
This podcast is a production of MACS, the Mobile Air Climate Systems Association. MACS is the nonprofit trade association for the mobile air conditioning industry, representing manufacturers, Tier 1 suppliers, tool and equipment providers, parts distributors, and of course, service shops, owners, and technicians. MACS is a membership-driven organization serving the industry through training, education, advocacy, government relations, standards writing, and EPA Section 609 certification. If you'd like to learn more about MACS, please visit us on our website, www.maxmobileairclimate.org, where you can join MACS as a member. This podcast was produced by me, Steve Schaeber, and hosted by Steve Schaeber and Peter Coll. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give a thumbs up, and please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Thanks for listening.